First of all, thanks to be here. I know it's not the best hour to start the presentation. You have just launched, so please don't fall asleep, okay? This is a new material that I'm going to present today. First, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm Ornella Tosta Villino. I'm the responsible of the technical support department of the company Graphenano Dental. And today, thanks to Custodent, I will explain you about this new product, okay? Also, I'm dental technician, and I want to also focus this presentation not only in what is the graphene, also in which is going to be the uses and which parameters we need to know to have a success case. One second. Now, so today I'm going to explain about a biopolymer that is called graphene and how we apply this nanotechnology to the modern dentistry. First, I want you to explain you about the graphene. Graphene is allotropic presentation for the carbon. As you know, the carbon, we obtain it from different ways. We can find carbon in the graphite of our pencils. We can find also carbon in the configuration of the diamond. Also inside our body, we have carbon, okay? So thanks to the carbon, we obtain this pure graphene that is going to have a hexagonal shape with the union with all the molecules as you can see in the image. About the properties of the graphene, there are a lot, and I'm going to explain you about them. Graphene is going to be very resistant. It's going to be very strong. Also, it is a superconductor of the temperature. This is going to help us when we use the graphene inside the polymers. It's going to help us to close all the union between the molecules, and it's going to help us to reduce the absorption of liquids. Also, it's going to help us to reduce the monomer residual, and also we are going to have a more stable material. Graphene reacts chemically with other substances. Also, it's transparent and lighter. This is a big advantage because it's not going to give weight to our final prosthetic. Also, it is biocompatible, hydrophobic, and flexible. About the flexible, if we think about in the materials of nowadays, we think about zirconia or metal ceramic. These materials have some issues, like they are very heavy, they are very strong, and has very hard superficial surface. But they doesn't have the capacity of absorption of loads. And when we need to rehabilitate our patients with an implant treatment, it's important to choose a material that could have the possibility to absorb the loads of the patients. This is the big goal about the graphene. We are going to mix resistant, we are going to also have flexibility, durability, and aesthetic. So we are going to provide a new material for our patients. About the properties and the parameters of the GCAM, that is the graphene material, we are going to reduce the liquid absorption up to 4 milligrams per millimeter cube. This is minimum. This is very important because it's going to give us the longevity of the material. If the material doesn't absorb liquid, it's going to be more long-term in mouth. It is not going to change the color, and it's going to be more resistant. About the residual monomer, this is important for those patients that has allergic to the monomers, okay? So we reduce up to 0.004%. This is really minimum, practically zero. About the properties of mechanical situation, we are going to see that the elastic module, we are going to level up the resistance up to 3,200 megapascals. The flexural strength, we are going to level up to 140 megapascals. Also the superficial hardness, 88 short D, and the compressive force, 155. Obviously, these are all parameters that if we need to use a new material or we are going to test a new material, we need to know and compare these parameters with others on the market, okay? So let you know that these are the graphene properties. And also we have to talk about the most important, that is the biological property, okay? Graphene is biocompatible, also is bacteriostatic, and is not toxic. So we are going to have all these three parameters ready for rehabilitate our patients in the best situation. It's important when we are going to explain about a new material to talk about the studies that we have about this. I'm going to show you some different studies that we have published in the lot of reviews. Here we can see different studies that talk about flexural strength and elastic modules of the graphene comparing with other polymers on the market. Also, we have studies that talk about the physical, chemical, and microbiological properties of the graphene. Also, we have studies that talk about and explain about the nanofiber carbons of Graphenano Dental. This is where we produce the graphene, and how this graphene has antibacterial properties. Also, this was an article published on polymers. And the fourth study is those that talk about the thermocycle process. This type of studies let us know how long the material could be in long term without changing any properties. In this study, we can see that the graphene could accept 10,000 thermocycle cycles, okay, process. Now it's important that you can see that the graphene, the name of the product is the GCAM. You can see that it's a material that we fabricate in Spain, and it has all the certification for definitive prosthetic. Let you know that our material is already certified by the CE and FDA certification with the class 2A. This, if we need to know and talk about definitive materials, it's important that they have the correct certification for that. We are in the same range as a zirconia or metal ceramic, but remember that these materials, the difference between them is that they are going to behave completely different. If we think about the zirconia, it is very heavy, it doesn't have flexibility, and if we think about the graphene, we are going to have this advantage. Now, a big question for the customers is to know on which type of treatments they can use the graphene. So practically, we can use graphene for different type of treatments, as you can see here. We can do implant restorations, we can do permanent and temporary crowns, bridges, we can do also removable dentures, we can also do split guides for bruxing patients, so onlines, venners. You can see that it's a very versatile material. It's going to be very versatile to solve a lot of treatments in our daily day. The important thing here is that we need to know how to use the material, and we need to follow up all the design parameters that are going to be important to know, not only for the dental technician, also by the doctor, to have a success case. That's why I'm going to explain you which type of keys we need to have or to take into account to have a success case using graphene. The workflow is going to be the follow. First, or initially, obviously, we need to have a clinical diagnostic. It's important to evaluate our patients and know what are going to be the needed for this patient. After this, it's important to scan and then to plan the prosthetic so we can do a correct designing, finishing, and placement of the prosthetic to our patients. Today, I'm going to explain you about the most important things that the doctor and the tech need to know for the planning and designing of the dental prosthetic. When we already plan our treatment, we are going to do the cut, the design of the prosthetic, then the milling, the finish, and the fitting of the prosthetic to the patient. Now I'm going to explain step by step. For the planning and assessment of our prosthetic, it's important to evaluate the minimum thickness depending on the treatment that we are going to design. Also, it's important to know the number of implants that we are going to place to our patient, the pontics, and the cantilever. Depending on these 4 things, we are going to plan our case. Without this information, we cannot have a success case doing our treatment. Here you can see the minimum thickness if we are going to work with natural teeth, if we are going to prepare our natural teeth, if we are going to do crowns, you can see here that we can go in the cervical area of 0.4 millimeters. Then in the rest of the crown, we are going to 0.6. Remember that this is the minimum thickness. It's important, and you need to remember that we are talking about a definitive prosthetic. So it's important the technician and the doctor knows that if we design in 0.6, it's important that the occlusion is already checked in mouth in our patient. Because, for example, if we cement this crown into our patients and then the doctor check the occlusion and touch the occlusion of the graphene crown, we are going down of this 0.6. So please, me as dental technicians, it's important to know that we are designing in the correct sizes, okay? So remember, minimum thickness are this one that reflects in this slide. If we are going to design veneers, that is another possibility of treatment using graphene, it's important to evaluate initially the color of the teeth. If we have a healthy teeth and the color of the teeth is okay, we could go to thinner design of our veneer. But if the doctor sees that the teeth is discolored or has a very dark color, it's important to give more thickness to our design to opaque the color of the background that we have. It's important to know that the graphene is a translucency material. So it's going to be very helpful because it's going to be very aesthetic and it's going to integrate very good in mouth with our treatments. But it's important to know the minimum thickness to apply to have a very aesthetic prosthetic. Also, you can do inlines, onlines, okay, for make also this type of treatments. And here you have different cases of inlines situation with the minimal thickness established. Now, when we are going to talk about implants, okay, because as I mentioned before, this material is very important, or the big goal about the graphene is that we are going to have resistance and flexibility. This is going to help us to preserve more our implants in the future. Remember that our implants doesn't have any periodontal ligament. It is completely screwed on the bone. So we need a material that could help the patients to absorb the loads of the patient, okay? Now, about the designing of what we need to know if we are going to design a graphene prosthetic when we are using implants. The minimal thickness around the abutment will be in the emergency profile 1 millimeter, in the equator 2.5, and in occlusal 1.5. This is going to be, as I mentioned before, the minimal thickness. Also, we need to know that when we are going to work with abutments or T-base, it's important also that the abutment could cover minimum the 50% of the height of our restoration of graphene. A lot of you will ask, why, no? Why we need to do this? Here it's important because the T-base or the abutment, it is not flexible, okay? It is titanium. It's important also remember that the graphene has flexibility. So it's important to find a stability between both materials so we could avoid debonding problems, okay? So remember, minimum covering the 50% of the height of the restoration. Also, we need to check where we have our connection. If we have our connection down in our gingiva, it's the same case as I mentioned before. We are going to screw the abutment down to the connection, and we will not have the enough surface for a correct cementation process, okay? So in the first image, we can see like the perfect situation of a designing if we have our connection level up. Here we can see not a correct design, okay? We have our connection down in the gingiva, and the solution will be to choose the correct abutment with the correct height of the gingiva that is going to give us the correct surface for the cementation. So these are some parameters to take account when we are going to design. Okay, now we have to think that when we are going to rehabilitate our patients, if we think about in our natural dentition, we have one crown, or if we think about in our tooth, we have the crown and the root, okay? So one root support one crown. If we think in the implants, we know that we sometimes, when we do All-on-6 or All-on-4, our implants are supporting the forces and the loads of more teeth, okay? Not one implant for one tooth. So this is important to know when we are going to design also. If we have more implants, we could do a monolithic structure with the graphene. Here you can see All-on-6 design full arch with a correct distribution between the implants. So we can do a monolithic structure with the graphene without any problem. Obviously, follow up the minimal thickness that I already talked about. In the down, we can see another prosthetic, also with 6 implants, but they don't have the correct distribution between them. We have a big pontic in the front area of this treatment. I think that this type of treatment will break with a lot of materials on the market nowadays, because obviously it's a very big pontic between implants. You need to know that with the graphene, we can apply maximum 2 pontics between implants, okay? On the posterior area, and in the front, we could go up to 3 elements between implants. Also remember that it's important to reinforce always the connectors to ensure our prosthetic and our minimal thickness. When we cannot apply the correct design or the correct parameters design for use the graphene technology, it's important that we have another solution. In this case, you can see an all-on-4, that the issue of all-on-4 treatment is that only 4 implant is supporting all the loads of the patient, and we could have big pontics between implants or big cantilevers. If we have a prosthetic or a patient that is similar than this case, we have a solution. We cannot work in a monolithic way, but we know that we need to apply a superstructure or reinforced structure in the bottom. This will be a solution also for these patients. We will design a bar in the bottom and then the secondary with the GCAM. And then we can do the finishing of the prosthetic. So you can see that is as I mentioned before, is a versatile material. We can work in a monolithic way if we have all the correct parameters, or also we can use reinforcements, like it could be titanium, chromo cobalt, PIC, depending on the material that you use in the daily day on your lab or in the clinic. So this will be also another solution for your patients. About the milling with the graphene, it is going to be also very easy. It's not difficult. We can mill in wet or dry strategy. Let you know that if you work with the Millbox software, you can find the GCAM strategy inside the software. If you don't work with the Millbox, you can use the PMMA strategy and you can use the same tools. It's not necessary to have specific tools for mill the graphene. About the finishing of this material, you have different possibilities. In the first option, you can see that we have the manual polishing with our own kit. You can see that it has some steps to follow up, but it's going to be very easy because finally, if we think about on the material that we use a lot on the lab or the clinic are polymers. So we are used to use this type of material. Graphene, we are going to apply a manual polishing as the same as any polymer that we are used to use in our daily day. Also, we can apply stains or composites for make the characterization of our prosthetic, and also acrylics in the gingiva area. Here you can see a photo, an image, where you can see the comparative between a manual polishing in the right hand and a staining characterization in the left hand. Depending on how do you want to finish your prosthetic, you can give different type of finishings to the final restoration. Now, I'm going to explain you about which is going to be the workflow on the protocol for the characterization with stains or composites. The preparation of the graphene structure is going to be the same using both techniques. Now I'm going to put a video and I'm going to explain you step by step which is going to be the protocol for the stains and composites. You can see that in our exocad, we can find our GCAM material inside. So you will find a lot of parameters inside our exocad software. When we finish our design, we are going to do the milling, in this case, in dry way. And we are using the graphene strategy because we are using the Millbox software. But remember that if you don't use the Millbox, you can choose the PMMA strategy, wet or dry milling with the same tools. When we have already finished the milling, remember that we don't need any thermal process. we can continue during our finish protocol with the prosthetic. We don't need any sintering process. We don't need any intermediate. We milled and finish our processes. We sandblast with aluminum oxide, 110 microns, 2-3 bars of pressure. Then we clean with alcohol, not water or water streamer, always with alcohol. Then it's important to apply the acrylic primer. As you see, we have made first the mechanical retention with the sandblast, and now we are doing a chemical retention with the bonding. As you can see, we apply a thin layer in all our graphene structure, so we can get sure that the union with the characterization material is going to be the optimus. When we finish applying the bonding, it's important to light cure. We are going to do a light cure process. The light or the chamber or the machine that you are going to use for light cure needs to cover a specific range. It goes around 380 to 500 nanometers. This is important to have a definitive characterization of our graphene structure. Now, we are applying different composites of different colors also to characterize our gingiva area of our prosthetic. You can use, as you can see, different colors. Also, you can use different brands. It's not necessary to use a specific one. Only you need to know that the preparation of the graphene structure is important to sandblast, then to clean with alcohol and apply the bonding. When we finish our characterization, we put it again in our light cure machine with the correct seconds, okay, depending on the machine. And when it's already light cure, we continue with the polishing of the pink gingiva and also all the graphene structure. We are using now our own kit. It's the G tools for the polish of our structure. Also, if you want, you can play glaze and light cure the glaze. But I prefer, when I do my clinical cases, I prefer to do manual polishing. I think the shining and the final restoration, it is more natural with the polishing. You see that the graphene structure, in this case, is completely monolithic, and we only make the characterization in the vestibular area. The rest of the structure is all graphene, and we do the polishing of all the structure to ensure and have the benefits of the graphene inside, okay? Remember that the graphene is going to help us to not change the color, not absorb liquid, not add plaque, okay? So it's important to do a correct polishing. And you can see that the bottom also, where we have the support of the implants and the soft tissue, it's all graphene, okay? We need to have the advantage of the graphene inside our mouth. And now it's completely finished, our prosthetic. And this will be the protocol of the finish and what we are going to do in the lab to finish the prosthetic. Now, I'm going to explain you about some clinical cases, because I know that we don't have a lot of time to talk more about the product, okay? But I want to show you some clinical cases and you can see the follow-up after 2 years. This is the longest case placed in mouth with the graphene. It was placed on the University of Madrid in 2018. In this case, the doctor decided to put in the upper all full monolithic structure of graphene And in the bottom, also a monolithic structure, but in this case, an all 5, full arch in the bottom. And you can see that we make the characterization also with the pink gingiva, with a composite to give more aesthetic. This is the case after follow-up of 2 years. This is another clinical case. We can see the before and after of this lady. Here is the preparation of the tooth. It's important that also when we work with natural teeth, the preparation of the teeth should be more parallel walls. And here you can see and observe that the color of the tooth is very dark. So here, for the designing of our graphene crown, should be the correct to cover the color of the background that we have. In this case, I used a monochroma disc, no multichroma. The multichroma is more translucency, and the monochroma is going to help me to opaque the color of the background. This is the follow-up after 2 years. This is a third clinical case. You can see this patient, bruxism patient. This patient break everything. We do continually reparation with composite to solve the problem. But finally, here we can see a 3 class of occlusion and not very easy, okay? So for those patients that are very bruxisms, and we use materials that are very hard and they don't have the capacity to absorb these loads, it's important to use new materials that is going to be the graphene to help these patients to solve this type of problems and issues. Here we can see the ray X from the beginning with a metal ceramic structure, and then after 2 years with implants, monoblocks, and the monolithic structure. And this is the graphene after 2 years. The same, we solve the problem of this patient. We give him a better solution to rehabilitate and have the correct functions of masticatory loads, because finally the patients want to eat, okay? And we need to give them the best or choose the correct material for rehabilitate. Here we can see also that the color continue to be stable. Also the occlusion, it's okay. Also we don't have plaque addition, and this is important for definitive materials. Also 4 case for benders. Before the preparation of the structure of the natural teeth, and then also the follow-up after 2 years, okay? Here we have also 1 implant. In this case, I choose this case also for the follow-up and show you about the design. In this case, as I mentioned before, I choose the correct abutment with the correct height of the gingiva and the correct surface of cementation for the correct design. So this is important that you can follow up all these design parameters that today we talk for have a success case. And again, this is the follow-up after 2 years of the implant crown. Let you know that these cases also we put it, they are from some customers and doctors that are using graphene already in Ukraine. You can see the works that they are doing now in your country. This is another doctor. Okay, so we have different type of prosthetics, different ways to rehabilitate, and finally, we are giving you the possibility to choose a new material, okay? Because I always says that I'm not here to say that graphene is going to be for all the treatments and all the patients. Obviously, no. But it's going to be a new possibility and a new material that is going to open us to solve also a lot of problems that we have in our daily day, thanks to the biomechanical properties, biocompatibility properties that graphene give to the product. And for finish, let you know and give you the thanks to be today here. Let you know that graphene technology has been applied since 2018. We are commercialized the product in 70 countries already, and give you the support of Graphenano Dental and also to Custodent, that is our official distributor in Ukraine, to give you this new possibility and this new material to all you. I hope we can work together and graphene technology could be being used in your country for a long time. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope you see you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.